Sometimes life hits you with questions that have no answer, no logic, no closure. You sit there asking, why me? Why now? Why like this? But the truth is, some whys will never come with explanations. And the more you chase them, the more you stay stuck in a moment that's already gone. You're not here to solve every mystery. You're here to keep moving, to trust that pain has purpose, even when you don't see it yet. You can either stay in the past asking why, or step into your future and ask, what's next? What's next is healing. What's next is growth. What's next is discovering strength you didn't know you had. What's next is the chapter you write, not the one life wrote for you. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means making peace with what you cannot change and rising toward what you still can. You weren't built to stay broken. You were built to rise, rebuild, and rewrite. In life, we often crave answers, especially when we're hurting. We want to make sense of the storm, to connect the dots, to understand why something happened the way it did, why that relationship ended, why that opportunity slipped away, why someone we loved had to leave too soon, why we gave our best and still came up short. It's human nature to seek meaning, to try to find a reason behind the pain. Because if we can just understand it, maybe we can control it. Maybe we can feel some relief. But the truth is, not every question comes with an answer. And some answers, even if they did come, wouldn't bring the comfort we imagine. Some events in life are chaotic, unfair, or simply beyond our comprehension. And as much as we dig, replay, and overanalyze, we may never find the why that satisfies our soul. That realization can be one of the most difficult to accept, because we're not just looking for logic, we're looking for peace. Yet ironically, the more we demand a reason, the more imprisoned we become by the question itself. We replay scenes in our head over and over, waiting for a breakthrough that never comes. We live in the echo of yesterday, thinking maybe if we figure it out, we can finally move forward. But life doesn't always offer neat resolutions or tidy explanations. Sometimes things fall apart simply because they had to, because there's something else being built in their place. And if we're too busy asking why, we might miss what's being formed in the silence. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't come from the event itself, but from the loop we create afterward. The constant mental replay, the search for answers, the attempt to rearrange the past with different outcomes. We go over every detail in our minds, trying to find where it all went wrong, trying to understand if it was our fault, or someone else's, or just fate. That chase becomes exhausting. It drains our energy, our hope, and eventually our sense of direction. Closure becomes this illusion we keep chasing. The idea that if we just knew why, if we just had one more conversation, one more explanation, we'd be free. But in many cases, the closure we're looking for doesn't come from the other person or from the situation making sense. It comes from within. Still, we hesitate to move forward. Why? Because there's comfort in staying close to the story, even if it's painful. There's a strange familiarity in holding on, in thinking about what could have been, should have been, or might have been. But while you're stuck in the story, life is still moving. The days keep passing. The opportunities for healing and growth quietly walk by while we're busy looking backward. Staying stuck becomes a form of control, because if we can't change the outcome, at least we can keep it in focus. But that control is an illusion. What it really does is freeze us in a moment that no longer serves. It locks us in a version of ourselves that's no longer growing, no longer dreaming. The longer we chase answers that won't come, the more we rob ourselves of the life that could be lived on the other side of letting go. There comes a moment in every journey where we're forced to choose between understanding the past and embracing the future. And often that moment arrives without warning. A sudden loss, a betrayal, a dream that didn't unfold the way we imagined. In the aftermath, there's a heavy temptation to stay where it hurts, to linger in the questions, to wait for an explanation before we take our next step. But the truth is, waiting for perfect clarity can become a prison. Life rarely hands us the full picture before we move. It offers glimpses, subtle nudges, and opportunities that don't always make sense in the moment. Progress, more often than not, starts in the dark. It begins not when we have it all figured out, but when we decide to move anyway, to trust that even if we don't know exactly where we're going, we're not meant to stay where we are. It's a kind of courage that doesn't wait for all the answers. It simply chooses forward. This choice doesn't ignore the pain. It doesn't pretend that nothing happened. What it does is recognize that healing doesn't require full understanding. It requires intention. It requires a willingness to stand back up, to walk through the unknown, to step into the what's next without the map we hoped for. That's where real transformation begins. It's in those moments when we stop asking why everything broke and start asking what we can build now from the pieces. When we stop wishing things had gone differently and begin to create something meaningful with what remains. That's not denial. That's power. The kind of power that doesn't depend on circumstances but on choice. Pain is one of life's greatest teachers, yet it's often the lesson we want to skip. When we're in the middle of suffering, be it loss, failure, heartbreak, or disappointment, it's natural to want to escape it, to numb it, to question it. But what we rarely realize in those moments is that pain isn't just something to survive. It's something that shapes us. Hidden within every painful experience is the potential for deep growth, the kind that comfort never offers. Think about it. When things are easy, we don't stress, we don't question, we don't dig deep. But when life brings us to our knees, that's when we start to ask the real questions. That's when we find out who we are, what we value, and what we're truly made of. Pain strips away the surface, the noise, the distractions, and what's left is raw truth. And that truth, though it hurts, is fertile ground for transformation. Sometimes the very thing we're trying to get over is the thing that's growing us into a stronger version of ourselves. Pain often becomes the turning point, the place where the old self dies and the new self begins to form. We just don't see it clearly while we're in it. We want it to stop, to go away, to make sense. But what if instead of resisting pain, we began to see it as part of the process? Not something that breaks us, but something that builds us. It's not easy to believe that pain has a purpose when your heart is heavy or your path feels shattered. But over time, what once felt like a curse often reveals itself as a hidden gift, a teacher in disguise, a doorway to a deeper understanding of life, faith, and inner strength. The pain didn't come to destroy you, it came to wake something up inside you. Something that can only emerge when everything familiar has been stripped away. When you shift your focus from why did this happen to what's next, something powerful begins to change, not just in your circumstances, but in your mindset, your energy, and your spirit. It's a quiet but profound decision that says, I may not understand the past, but I'm not going to let it define my future. That one question, what's next, becomes the doorway to possibility. It invites you to stop being a victim of what happened and start becoming the author of what will happen. Asking what's next doesn't erase the pain, but it redirects your energy toward hope. It becomes a lifeline when everything else feels uncertain. It reminds you that life continues to move forward and you have the power to move with it. No, you might not have chosen what happened to you, but you absolutely get to choose what you do with it now. That shift from dwelling to building is where healing begins. That's where you start to reclaim your voice, your agency, your life. What's next is more than a question, it's an act of courage. It means you're no longer waiting for the perfect explanation or apology to start again. It means you're willing to take the pieces that are left and create something new, something stronger, something wiser. Because even if your story took a turn you didn't expect, it's not over. There are still blank pages, still chapters to be written, still dreams to be rediscovered. And maybe, just maybe, what's next will lead you somewhere even better than what you lost. Maybe it'll lead you to a version of yourself that never would have been born if everything had gone according to plan. Maybe it will open a door you didn't even know you needed to walk through. Letting go isn't a sign that you've given up. It's not weakness, it's not surrendering to defeat, and it's certainly not forgetting what mattered. In fact, letting go often requires more strength than holding on. Because when you let go, you're making a conscious decision to stop fighting battles that are no longer yours to fight. You're choosing peace over chaos, freedom over attachment, growth over comfort. And that choice takes immense courage. We live in a world that celebrates control. We're taught to hold on, to fix, to make sense of everything. But some things in life, relationships, failures, missed chances, broken dreams, can't be controlled, explained, or repaired the way we want. And the longer we cling to them, the heavier they become. The emotional weight starts to affect how we see ourselves, how we move forward, and how we show up in the world. We convince ourselves that holding on is the only way to honor what was, when in truth holding on too long can prevent us from stepping into what could be. Letting go is wisdom. It's understanding that some chapters aren't meant to last forever, and that doesn't make them worthless, it makes them sacred. It means you've grown enough to recognize that not everything deserves space in your future. It means you've accepted that your healing, your peace, your next step is more important than holding on to something that no longer serves you. And this isn't about denying your emotions or pretending like you're okay when you're not. It's about being honest enough with yourself to say, this is hurting me more than it's helping me, and I'm ready to make room for something better. There's a quiet power in release. It doesn't make headlines, it doesn't always feel triumphant, but deep down, when you let go, you create space. Space for clarity, space for renewal, space for the unexpected blessings that were always waiting for you on the other side of what you were afraid to release. There's a powerful freedom that comes when you learn to separate what's in your hands from what belongs in God's. Life is full of situations that test your patience, your strength, your control. We spend so much time trying to manage every outcome, predict every move, protect ourselves from every possible failure. But the truth is, no matter how much effort we put in, there are always going to be things we can't influence: people's choices, timing, setbacks, closed doors. That's not a reflection of weakness, it's a reflection of being human. What you can control is how you show up. Your attitude, your discipline, your effort, your response to pain, the way you treat people, the thoughts you choose to dwell on. Those things are within your reach. And when you take ownership of what's yours, when you focus on what you can do, you begin to build momentum even in the middle of uncertainty. You stop wasting energy on trying to change what was never yours to change, and you begin pouring that energy into what actually moves you forward. But here's where the balance comes in. After you've done your part, after you've shown up with all you've got, you must learn to release the rest. That's where trust comes in. That's where faith begins. It's one thing to work hard, it's another thing to release the outcome, knowing that God sees what you don't, knows what you can't, and moves in ways far beyond your understanding. That kind of surrender isn't passive. It's not giving up. It's an intentional act of trust. It's saying, I've done what I can, now I let go of what I can't. Because the more we try to control what isn't ours, the more anxious, fearful, and frustrated we become. We start to carry weight we were never meant to hold. But when you focus on the controllable, your growth, your mindset, your faith, and leave the rest in God's hands, you begin to experience a peace that doesn't come from circumstances, but from knowing you're not walking this path alone. There's a misconception that strength is only found in those who fight, in those who push through, in those who never break. But real strength, the kind that transforms you, is often born in the stillness after the storm, and the quiet resolve to get back up after everything has fallen apart. Surrendering is not weakness. In fact, some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who've had to let go, rebuild, and rise again with nothing but faith in their heart and fire in their soul. We're told to keep it together, to stay strong, to never let life see us crumble. But what if true power doesn't come from pretending we're unshaken, but from embracing the breaking, walking through it, and still choosing to rise? Letting go is hard. Starting again is harder. But choosing to rise after being broken, that's the hardest thing of all, and the most courageous. It takes an unshakable spirit to look at the ruins of what you thought would be and still believe something beautiful can grow from it. You weren't meant to stay down. You weren't created to live forever in sorrow and shame or in self-doubt. The things that broke you may have slowed you, but they didn't destroy you. The scars you carry, they're not signs of defeat. They're proof that you've survived battles others couldn't even see. And every time you rise, you build a version of yourself that is wiser, deeper, more compassionate, more grounded. You learn to stop chasing perfection and start honoring progress. You begin to trust that brokenness isn't the end of your story. It's the birthplace of something new. The world wants to define you by what hurt you, by what didn't work out, by the pain you've endured. But you get to choose a different definition. You get to decide that every time life knocked you down, it was only preparing you to stand up stronger. You weren't built to stay broken. You were built to bend, to crack, to be reshaped, and then to rise again, more powerful than before. So no, you may never get all the answers. You may never fully understand why it happened, why it hurt, or why it had to unfold the way it did. But that's not the point anymore. The point is you're still here, breathing, standing, capable of rising, and every breath you take is a sign that your story isn't finished. You have a choice now, to keep asking questions that hold you back, or to step boldly into the unknown and create something new. This moment, right now, is the turning point. Not when the pain stopped, but when you decided it wouldn't stop you. Let go of the why, embrace the what's next, and write a future that even the past never saw coming.